Welcome to the Entrepreneur's Journey. I'm Peter Santry, a former Wall Street exec turned leadership team coach. And on this podcast, we talk with entrepreneurs about what it takes to build a business, the wins, the setbacks, and the lessons learned that will help others navigate the climb. Today, we're exploring how to scale in the fast-moving world of fintech. My guest is Matt Kassel, Chief Revenue Officer and employee number 7 at Edgewater Markets, a leading trading technology firm helping institutions compete in the global foreign exchange markets. From strategy to speed, we'll dig into the challenges of growth in one of the most competitive spaces out there. Let's welcome Matt Kassel. Hey, Matt.
Hello, how are you?
Good to see you. And let's just dig right in. You were working sort of in a large financial institution, and you made the decision back in 2011 to leave the sort of large world and join a relatively new startup in the fintech space in the foreign exchange market. So how did you make that decision? Because we see a lot in our audience of people going from large companies into sort of startup situations.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's a pretty easy story, and it might even be an old one. But I started in the banking, in the banking industry, going through right out of college into their, management training program. And there were 9 of us in that program to begin with, and within a year there was only 2 or 3 of us left, which is usually how that goes. From that point on, I stayed within the banking world, working for AIG, working for Dresdner Bank, working for ING, working for a hedge fund, and I had matured or developed into a foreign exchange trader. And by the time that we had emerged out of the financial crisis, it had dawned upon me that I had gotten all that I was going to get out of the large banking entities. I guess I was a good trader. I wasn't great. And I had realized relatively quickly that if there was going to be a next leg in my career, was 1, not going to be with a banking environment, and 2, it probably wouldn't be within the trading environment either. And so when I had the opportunity to join Edgewater Markets, which was a startup agency broker of Rosenthal Collins Group, small futures broker in Chicago, I jumped at the opportunity. It was a step back from a compensation perspective, and it was a step back in terms of me knowing what was going on around me. I had to relearn a new, more electronic world, and it was what I wanted. It was the step that I was willing to take. It was the right time in my life to take that, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Interesting. So it was kind of a moment in time a little bit, but when you make a move like that, you're leaving sort of a brand, and then you're, really creating your own brand in the marketplace. And how, when you join a firm like that, you obviously can't play in a lot of the places because you don't have the capital or the size to be able to compete. So how did you position and differentiate yourselves in the marketplace so that you could make money and grow into the firm that you are today?
Sure. So the first leg that we just talked about was kind of my journey and how I found my way to Edgewater. Once I did, and there were several principles that everyone had come from the banking background for the most part. We didn't own our own technology; we leased it. We didn't have our own credit limits. We used a prime broker. And these are the ways that you start off finding and providing value to your clients and in the marketplace. Mm-hmm. Over the course of time, in a relatively flat environment at Edgewater, there was nobody that was working for anybody else. We were all working for each other. We were accountable to each other, and it's a very organic, team building kind of way to develop your business. From there, we received a private equity investment, so we found a private equity investor that saw real potential in our mission and our work that we'd done so far. We started to develop our own technology, cease to lease technology, which is a huge savings and benefit in the overall enterprise value of the firm that we were building. We grew from 7 to 10 people when I began to about 60 or 70 at that point. And then that's when you start to scale, and scaling your business is probably the most difficult the most difficult task when you have any type of startup or very young business. It's somewhat, I don't want to say easy because it's not, but it's somewhat less challenging to be profitable, while you're also setting up the infrastructure to be able to scale and to really, 3x, 5x, 10x your business in whatever time period your business model sets that up for. So I think that, once I joined Edgewater, and once we all started working together and simultaneously building our revenue streams and building our client base and building our value add, we were also very cognizant of building the infrastructure to be able to scale. And I think that kind of set forth our first large scaling event from, 10, 15 people to 65. And then again in 2018, 2019, from 65 to 120, and now from 120 to 149. And when your infrastructure is set up to scale, you can scale 5x, you can scale 10x, and that's when things start to get very interesting, and that's when people start to, start talking about you, and that's when you end up having these types of podcasts.
Right, right. So obviously you in the beginning everybody did everything, and then it
Correct.
sounds like you had to build that infrastructure. You probably had to specialize your people, and in terms of somebody who's handling the technology, somebody who's handling the clients, and somebody was obviously and also you built offices, right? I mean
Exactly.
you were US centric, and then you moved across the globe with offices as well during that time to attract more customers and things like that. So it was really that sounded like the process that you're going through.
Yes, the scaling is the word that fits all models, and when I mentioned scaling from 10, 15 to 60, 65 to 120 towards 150, yes, everybody can maybe think about that as all being in one office, but it wasn't. As you said, we'd opened an office in London, we'd opened an office in Mexico City, we'd opened an office in Singapore and Hong Kong, we'd opened an office in Santiago, Chile, say Sao Paulo, Brazil. And each time you do that, you need to have a staff that complements each other, and it's not everyone doing the same thing. All of a sudden you start you know parsing out roles and responsibilities, and that makes another challenge, in that when you have that many more people all over the world, there's different holidays, there's different problems, there's different challenges, there's different office nuances, and things can become, if you let it, a little bit more of a weight than a lift. And that's the challenge from a management perspective when scaling, is making sure that you hire the right people, making sure that you create the right environment for everyone to work in, and everybody feels connected, whether they be in Singapore or London or Sao Paulo, Brazil. So yeah.
So in order to grow those number of people, you obviously have to have the revenue to support it, and you must have chosen a lane to be in, because I mean this is a land of giants, right? I mean they're dinosaurs in the foreign exchange markets. All the international banks, the domestic banks, they're all in there. So how were you able to carve out an area of the market for you to, or what was it that you chose that was away from these behemoths that are sort of dominating in the foreign exchange markets?
Well, that's an easy answer. It was through technology, and the ability to scale, the ability to for anyone to grow their franchise, is the answer is usually found within the technology space. Now, whether we're talking about Amazon, who scaled their business through technology, or whether we're talking about something as simple as TikTok that scales businesses through technology. Edgewater did the same thing. We had come up with some unique technology that was built in-house, that was conceived by just a couple people sitting down and talking about what kind of value add we could bring to the marketplace to compete with the large city banks, to compete with the large market makers out there that control large percentages of various asset classes. And what we came up with was technology, and being able to provide unique built, home built, custom built technology for specific players in niche markets that maybe don't have access to the technology that some of the big guys have, and maybe they don't have the distribution network that maybe some of the big banks have, and that we kind of sold them and delivered to them a technology infrastructure that would allow them to market their business and their franchise and their value add to the market through a technology source powered by Edgewater. And by doing that, we ended up not only bypassing a lot of the large city banks in terms of what they are providing for us, but and we flipped the switch on them and started providing them with a value add service that they needed from us. And when you do that, you kind of change your role in the marketplace and you go from being a customer of the large banks to a provider for the large banks. And you know, the banks are not, they're not bad people. They're not bad. They're in business for themselves. And if you can show them added value, you can provide them with enhanced revenue streams. They're going to become very supportive and very friendly.
So you were providing a better technology solution even for your, in effect, competitors in the large banking space. And it sounds like you went to some markets that were maybe a little bit more off the run relative to maybe the big, the big currencies. You were located maybe in some markets that weren't as well traveled. Was that enough?
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about some of the larger currencies, whether it be euro dollar, dollar yen, the British pound against the dollar, these are very commoditized currency pairs, and the banks have been trading them for a very long time, and they have very good tools to monetize their business. And although we provide that to our clients, it's really not our real value add, and our real value add will lie in currency pairs in Mexico like dollar mex, or in LATAM non-deliverable forward pairs like Chile, Peru, Colombia, Brazil, and also in the Asian non-deliverable pairs as well. And one of the techniques that we've used was we provide the technology, we give that technology to the onshore local banking names of each of those countries, and it allows them to now become the market maker within their home currency, which they have a natural inventory of, as opposed to going through a more international bank system and providing value to that international bank. Now we are able to electronify their business and allow them to provide value to themselves.
Okay. So it sounds like, in terms of building enterprise value for your company too, that really you're relying on a technology driven sort of SaaS-like revenue stream that, you're getting monthly recurring revenue as a big part of your revenue source. Is that really how the P&L is built at this point?
Absolutely correct.
Yeah. And that should pay off down the road for everybody. Let's hope. So let's fast forward to today, and we're in I think a very uncertain environment, or at least at this moment. What is your vision for the next 3 years out? Is it the continuation of this? Is it what are you looking forward to doing, and especially in your sort of perch as the chief revenue officer, how are you planning to grow the business from here?
So always to grow anyone's business, you need to continue to provide value to your client base. You need to be able to provide value to the marketplace. And I always look at the market that we're in as having 3 or 4 pillars. And those pillars are really defining the necessities that you need to be able to provide a client with access to markets. One of them is the technology. Of course, they need to have the tech. They need to be able to have that tech and to be able to scale their business through technology. 2, you need to have the access to the liquidity in the market, whether you're trading equities or fixed income or currencies. You need to have the real-time market spreads and access to market liquidity, when people need it most. It's very easy to supply market liquidity when there's really nothing going on. But Edgewater has proven, whether during Brexit, during the SNB collapse of the Swiss franc, during Trump's first term, during COVID, during the Ukraine invasion, I could go on and on, that our technology and our liquidity has been probably the most reliable component of our value add to our clients. Now, to the marketplace, there's another third pillar here, and that's credit. And in the past, the banking environment has been the lender of last resort to the clients of the financial marketplace. Well, there's been a change in the last maybe 4 or 5 years, and certainly since the SNB event in 2015, 16,
Right.
and that is being able to provide clients that don't necessarily have the great large balance sheet access to credit. And Edgewater is a regulated firm. We are regulated by the NFA here in the USA, and more importantly, regulated by the FCA in London, which then allows us to take in client funds and disperse them a credit limit, and they can operate on a margin. So now when you supply technology and you supply liquidity, and now you're supplying credit, you're kind of completing the necessary component of what it takes to become a full service provider in the financial markets. That fourth column that I mentioned is customer service, and let's not marginalize the importance of customer service. In order to provide the quality customer service in a market that does not shut down outside of maybe 40 hours over the weekend. We're talking about having a follow the sun office mentality, which means you have to have an office in Asia, you have to have an office in Europe, you have to have an office in the US, and boots on the ground in countries that you're participating in, like Chile and Peru and Colombia and Brazil and Korea and India. And that customer service component is critical for the market to know that you're there for them 24 hours a day, which we are.
You're really solving the components that you need to access the foreign exchange markets. And managing the risk across as the sun moves around the globe, as they say.
That's correct. And our goal is to participate in the same space as some of the large international banks. And so those are our competitors now. Maybe we're not yet ready to take on a client that it has a couple $1 trillion under management, but why not? That's the goal, that's the dream. And if there are 100 clients that some of these large international banks don't feel have the balance sheet to be onboarded there, well, we have a home for them in Edgewater.
Yeah, very interesting. We all know that this journey is not a straight line, although you've managed to navigate it pretty well. What were some of the mistakes as you went from 7 to 10 to 60 to 120 to now 150 and more employees? What tell us some of the pitfalls that you experienced as in this entrepreneurial journey?
So it goes back to scaling, and this is this is all on me and my mistakes, and my lessons that I've learned in that journey. When you scale, I've always had a very, very proud track record of hiring well, and I take it personally. And there's a lot of investment that goes into making and hire, and in the training period, and then the disruption to the team if that person were to leave, or or you hired badly. And so in our first round of scaling, I didn't move fast enough. And when you're hiring maybe 5 or 10 people, you really want to get every single one of those hires right. But when you need to hire 40 people, you're going to have to kind of understand that there's going to be a little bit higher failure in that hiring, and that's part of the scaling process. And scaling is not something that you do haphazardly, but it is something that when it warrants it, that you do quickly. And so I was a little bit slow in my hiring during that first scale. And then I kind of went the other way on the second round, where I hired too quickly and my percentage dropped below even what I consider to be a Mendoza line. So hiring is tough when you're talking about numbers. You could hire too slowly, you could hire too quickly, and to get it just right might require a couple failures.
Yeah. Well, I think when you hire at speed, you get you'll get those a higher percentage of C players, and they'll ultimately cost you, and they can disrupt your organization culturally and all those things,
Exactly.
and they can be painful to to deal with, and ultimately have to cut loose at some point. So very interesting. And so now it sounds like a very progressive story. And then down the road, I guess the enterprise value and everything is increased commensurately, and you've turned into that really recurring revenue stream, being the baseline of your revenue, which will attract a high multiple and lead to a nice valuation if that's the end game that you all choose to follow. So that sounds very good too.
Well, we're still in our building stage, so
Yep.
we're nowhere close to our end game by any means, and we're actually opening an office in Miami in December. Actually, we're opening the office in September, but we're scaling it come at the end of the year. So we're really excited to get involved in a couple of new products. Open a new office here in the U.S., which is always exciting, and of course, Miami is not such a bad place to go.
Right. Well, in December, it's sure not. That's for sure. So good. Okay. And if anybody wants to learn more about you, Matt, or Edgewater, what's the best way to communicate with you or get a hold of you?
Sure. There's if someone wants to reach out and learn more about Edgewater Market, so there's edgewatermarkets.com is our website, and there's plenty of areas within that website where you can reach out for additional information, whether it be from the sales side, from the tech side. It's all connected to our CRM, and we'll get back to you shortly. If somebody wants to reach out to me personally, they can reach out to my LinkedIn account, Matthew Kassel, and just look up Matthew Kassel at Edgewater Markets, and that'll be pretty transparent as well.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing your story, and I appreciate how you've navigated a very competitive marketplace and grown and scaled very successfully. So appreciate your time today, Matt, and thank you for the audience for tuning in.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks.